And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Shea Stadium in New York. Gary Cohen and Ron Darling with you tonight as the Mets are scheduled to open a three-game series against the Houston Astros. However, as you can see, the tarp is on the field. It's been raining in New York for the better part of the last 4 hours, raining lightly but steadily right now. The weatherman says we may get a break in the weather in the next hour or so. El Duque, Orlando Hernandez, has been scratched tonight. John Maine will pitch in his place because of the weather. Taylor Buchholz will go for the Astros, and we'll be right back to Shea as soon as the ball game is set to begin. For now, for your viewing pleasure, we're going to take you to an episode of Friends here on the WB11. Well, here at Shea Stadium, it is merengue night, and it looks like we're getting closer to playing baseball as the merengue night dancers entertain the crowd here. The grounds crew is taking the tarp off the field, and we should be ready for baseball before too terribly long. To get an idea of what we're facing in terms of weather coming down the road here and whether the rain has stopped, let's check in with Mr. G, WB11 staff meteorologist.
All right, Gary, in around the tri-state area, we have some good news. You're taking a look at the sky tracker. There's Shea Stadium. Watch the rain. Most of it is drifting to the south. That is really good news. And we're going to switch computers and show you another shot. Again, here's the city. And watch this band of heavy showers and thunderstorms still embedded. We're going to put it into motion. Again, watch the drive generally to the south of the city. That's good news. So I think we're going to get this game in. The problem is that we may have to wait another half hour to about 8:15, but it's going to be play ball, Gary. It should be okay.
Okay, thanks, Mr. G, and we'll be hanging out here at Shea Stadium and getting you ready for the start of tonight's game between the Mets and the Houston Astros as the merengue dancers entertain. We'll be back to Shea as soon as the game's getting ready. Right now, let's take you to Everybody Loves Raymond. Well, the Mets are back in New York. Took them a little extra time before they could get set to play baseball tonight. But after a rain delay from Shea Stadium in New York, WB11 Sports presents New York Mets baseball tonight. The Mets play the Houston Astros. And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Shea Stadium in New York. Gary Cohen and Ron Darling with you tonight as the Mets open a three-game series against the Houston Astros. The Mets coming back from a 4-2 road trip to start the second half of the season, and that's the way you want to start.
They really did. They kind of limped into the All-Star break, but now are playing much better. They still got to get the starting pitching on track, but they did have a good road series.
They began the road trip in Chicago, where they split the first two games with the Cubs, but then on Sunday night, what an inning. The sixth inning, the best ever inning.
You know, they used to always say, let's go out and hit for a half hour because you wanted to have a nice big inning. Well, they hit for more than a half hour as Cliff Floyd hit that home run to left field. Carlos Beltran with the grand slam, and then David Wright ended that inning with that two-run home run to right field.
An 11-run inning and all, the best inning in the 45-year history of the Mets. Then it was on to Cincinnati, where they split the first two and really had to get some great relief pitching yesterday.
Well, Chad Bradford has been doing it all year long, stranding those inherited runners, and it seems that Andy Chavez, every time he gets into a ball game, he does something to help the team, and went above and beyond yesterday with his game-winning hit.
Chavez, part of a greatly improved Mets bench, and he has been a huge part of this Mets first-place team. Meanwhile, the Houston Astros come to town tonight. Last year's National League champions. They're limping along, but then again, they've limped along early most years.
We are allowed to limp along so far in the National League. Only 5 teams over 500, and so far the Houston Astros, as you can see, in 2004 and 2005 have done such a great job at coming back and winning that wild card.
And right now, even though they're 4 games under 500, they're only 4 games out in the National League wild card race. It was to have been El Duque to pitch tonight for the Mets, but because of the questionable weather conditions, Willie Randolph made a change.
Well, I think it's a good change. Going to John Maine. You know, at El Duque's age, you don't want him getting up and down, back and forth. So they're going with a younger Maine, and I think that's a good thing for the Mets tonight.
That leads us to the Audi pitching matchup with John Maine pitching for the Mets. And Rookie Taylor Buchholz, who was once traded for Billy Wagner, will be on the mound for the Astros.
Well, you have to make sure you watch for Taylor Buchholz. He has good stuff. You look at that record, 6-7, but the team, the Astros, have just been unable to score any runs.
The Audi pitching matchup brought to you by Audi. It's greater to lead than to follow. So the Mets and the Astros a little bit late because of the rain as they get set to start a 3-game series tonight. Andy Chavez has been the super sub for the Mets so far this year. And Chris Cotter caught up with yesterday's hero. Chris will talk with Andy when we return to Shea Stadium in just a moment. Well, the weather is still a little bit murky here at Shea Stadium as we approach game time. The Mets and the Astros, however, the rain has stopped. And Willie Randolph and his crew set to try and go to 20 games over 500 for the first time this year. They got to 19 over yesterday thanks to the 10th inning heroics of Andy Chavez. Chris Cotter caught up with the Mets super sub.
Andy, are you surprised at what you've been able to accomplish this year?
Well, expecting that, I know I like to play a lot, and I know the thing that I can do on the field, but a little bit tougher when you're not every day on the field, and I'm just trying to prepare myself and my mind for the moment they really need me and trying to help the team.
He's been great for us. He's been one of those unsung heroes, if you will, and when you see him every day, you learn to appreciate him even more. He just stays prepared, knows how to play the game, speed, and his defense is probably one of the best in the game defensively, throw the ball, and he stays ready to play. He gives us a lot of sparks. So I love him. I mean, he's been real good for us and a big part of our success.
I've always thought of him as being a pest. You know what I mean? One of those pest dudes that when you come up to the plate, you hate that he's coming up to face you. You know what I mean? So I never imagined him doing what he's doing this year, of course, but I always knew that he would always get an opposing pitcher or opposing team a lot of problems.
And it has been a terrific bounce-back season for Andy Chavez, who hit under 220 last year playing for Washington and Philadelphia. But he has really settled into his role with the Mets and has been an enormous part of their success so far this season. Jose Reyes of the Mets get set to play the Astros, back with the first pitch in just a moment. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Jeep. Check out the #1 selling brand of SUVs in the Northeast. By Budweiser. Bright, crisp, clean, pure. This is Budweiser. This is beer. By Nissan, who invites you to shift the way you move through the world. By the TD Bank Financial Group, paying serious attention to what counts, you. And by Infiniti, using the power of design to create dynamic, beautiful automobiles. Mets and Astros waiting through a rain delay that will be just a little bit under an hour. John Maine was not supposed to start tonight. El Duque was. How tough for a young pitcher to do this on such short notice.
To tell you the truth, Gary, I think this is a great thing. A lot of times when you give a guy 4 or 5 days to worry about his start, especially when he's a rookie, they start to really grind about that start. Here, told at the last minute, probably can go out there and not have all that anxiety that you would have over the course of 4 days.
Well, the Astros have certainly not had a great season so far, but then again, their season doesn't often kick in till August. And here they are in contention despite being 4 games under 500.
If you're a manager, Phil Garner, as you see here, boy, you have to be happy that you've played the way you've played and last in the league in hitting, and you still are that close to that wild card.
Well, they've got Roger Clemens now. The Mets won't see him in this series. They've got Andy Pettitte pitching better. The Mets also won't see him in this series. Interestingly enough, both teams will not have their frontline starters going in this series.
But Houston will have Oswalt on Sunday. He's one of their best pitchers. And then Brandon Backey coming off the 60-day disabled list. He was a hero last year in the playoffs.
Here's the Nissan Astros lineup to face John Maine tonight. Lance Berkman having a phenomenal season, but he hasn't had a whole lot of help around him in that Astros lineup. Houston is 13th of 16 teams in the National League in runs scored.
Well, you see John Maine in his last start. He hasn't got a win yet. His last start, he pitched very well, except for 3 bad pitches. 3 solo home runs, but he has a fastball that we've seen so far, Gary, that seems to be very sneaky, especially when it's up in the strike zone. It's his breaking pitches that he's had trouble getting over. We'll be looking for that tonight.
Remember his first start, he had trouble with his finger that prevented him from really cutting loose on his curveball, and He's been able to incorporate them a little more, but still a pitcher very dependent on his fastball.
Yeah, he is, and he's not afraid to throw it, and I think that's good for a young pitcher. But he'll try for the Mets today to get them off to a good start. Hey, the TD Bank defense. The look at the defense is brought to you by the TD Bank Financial Group. You can see the standard Mets defense. Nady in right field, Beltran and Floyd, right Reyes, Valentin, Delgado, and Luduca, of course, doing the catching.
Well, the grounds crew has done a lot of work to get the field ready for the game. It rained from about 3 o'clock on and only stopped raining about a half an hour ago. And there certainly is the chance for more thunder showers as the evening goes along. But all in all, look at the warning track. Look how much better that looks than what we saw in Cincinnati the other night. Nothing is underwater.
Cincinnati, you needed an arc to get off with that.
Craig Biggio leads things off for the Astros. 2,885 hits for the Long Island native. First pitch by Maine, and Biggio pops it up. Reyes calls off right. One pitch and one retired. So after a rain delay of 54 minutes, we're underway at Shea. One out and nobody on, and here's Mike Lamb. Earlier in the season, Lance Berkman was playing a lot of the first base, but Lamb has taken over pretty much as the regular there, with Berkman moving to right field.
Well, Lamb's one of those guys, Gary, that has always had trouble finding position, but he can hit.
And he's hit some home runs this year, which is unusual for him. He's already hit 8 home runs.
Well, he's a guy that usually would get maybe 3-4 starts a week, but now playing every day, I think that's helping him with that home run potential.
Hits this one well to center field, but Beltran has room. And there are 2 away. So Maine going right after the hitters. 3 pitches, 2 outs.
Well, usually on a night like this, after it's rained all day, it gets very muggy and the ball does not carry.
Well, here's Chris Burke. Burke lately has been doing a lot of the number 3 hitting for Phil Garner. He's played some on the infield, right now playing in center field, and really has supplanted Willie Taveras, who had such a great rookie season last year as the regular center fielder. So Garner's really been tinkering with this team, as has the general manager Tim Purpura, picking up Aubrey Hoff to play third base. Burke far more successful as an outfielder. Maine ahead of him 0-2. How about that? It's a huge split. You chalk that up to coincidence?
I think that's coincidence there, because center field is a very difficult position to play, as well as second base.
Popped up, should be playable for Loduca or Wright. Wright calls him off. Side retired. Now, you can't have a much more efficient first inning than John Maine did. 6 pitches, 3 outs, and the Mets will come to bat against Taylor Buchholz in the bottom of the first. 24-year-old rookie Taylor Buchholz on the mound for the Astros tonight. And here's the Mets lineup that he'll face, brought to you by Nissan and your local Nissan dealers. Cliff Floyd getting hot since the All-Star break. Mets with their regular lineup in there tonight. Mets are leading the National League in runs scored. And Willie Randolph says they can only get better.
Well, you can see Taylor Buchholz. Opponent's batting average way down, only .238, and since June 17th, the best in baseball at 143, but has been bitten by the home run ball. 17 home runs given up in a little over 100 innings.
Big hard-throwing right-hander, and Reyes takes a strike, 0-1. Reyes at .294, tied for the league lead in runs scored, leading the league in stolen bases and triples. Off-speed pitch, and he had him out in front, 0-2.
Well, good pitch for this changeup that Reyes is way ahead of.
And he reaches for one and slaps it foul. Well, Reyes had that incredible 13-game hitting streak where he had 32 hits, and he has ridden that to big heights over the last 7 weeks. But he swings and misses at a slider in the dirt. That's something we haven't seen a whole lot of from Reyes over the last couple of months. And there's the first down.
Well, I think part of this is that we have not seen Taylor Buckhold, so Jose Reyes did not recognize this curveball that dives down and in. He has a very good curveball. You see that dot on the ball. That's where pitchers in the past have always been able to pitch Reyes, but he's usually been taking that pitch, but not that time. Again, the Astros defense. Wilson left field. Preston Wilson, son of Mookie Wilson. Munson doing the catching. He was on those University of Southern California team. Defense brought to TD Bank Financial Group.
Here's Paul LaDuca taking a strike. Very unusual to see a guy named Munson catching in New York after all these years. Back behind the Mets catcher LaDuca, who's been red hot despite playing with a torn ligament in his left thumb, hitting .404 over his last 13 games. And he takes a strike 0-2. By the way, I had to mention this before we got any further. There's something wrong with this. When it rains, our deal was that Keith would be here.
That's right. He's got the biggest smile on his face right now in Sag Harbor.
1-2 to LaDuca. I mean, he's the rainmaker. You're supposed to bring blue skies and bright sunshine.
Well, it's a little better. It's only an hour instead of the 2 hours and 23 minutes.
Well put. To left field. Wilson back. And Preston took a bad route to the ball, but still was able to track it down. Preston Wilson did not move well on that ball at all.
You know, his knees, he's had a lot of knee operations. He's not as moving as well as he has earlier in his career. Therefore, that's why he's in left field, not center field, where he used to play.
Well, Preston began his career right here at Shea Stadium, traded to the Marlins in the Mike Piazza deal. Here's Beltran coming off the superb road trip with grand slams in back-to-back games, and he hits the curveball to right field over toward the gap. Berkman, and he runs it down, side retired. So after John Maine pitched the 1-2-3 top of the first, Taylor Buckholz matches him in the bottom of the first. No score. That new wrinkle we've been talking about on Mets.com. You can now download the MLB.TV Mosaic, and with it you can watch up to 6 games simultaneously on one screen, including out-of-market Mets games. It's the highest quality video of live baseball you can watch on the internet. Check it out at Mets.com. Lance Berkman leads off the second inning against John Maine, who required only 6 pitches to get through the first. Berkman having a terrific year. Second in the National League in RBIs, only to Albert Pujols with those 85. 0-1 to Berkman.
You know, Gary, you can see by that first cut how quick of a bat Lance Berkman has.
There you see since the All-Star break last year, where Wright and Berkman ranked. And Maine gets ahead on Berkman 0-2.
I think so far early in the game watching John Maine work. So look at David Wright. He's going to have some RBIs in the next few years, I'll tell you that.
Comes right after Berkman, 94-mile-an-hour fastball on 0-2. You talked about it at the beginning, Ron. He's just unafraid of challenging hitters with his fastball, even good ones.
And one thing I've noticed early in this game, Gary, is that it seems like, I don't know if it's because of working with Rick Peterson, but he's working a lot more quickly than he has in the past few starts.
That will always endear you to your teammates, as will that. The high hard one striking out Berkman, one away.
I just like how the ball comes out of his hand. See the four-seamer. When you throw a four-seamer, it tends to rise in the strike zone. And if you chase John Maine's fastball up there, you're going to come up empty most of the time.
Well, Maine should be pretty strong tonight. He hasn't started a game in almost 2 weeks. Here's Aubrey Huff, recently acquired from Tampa Bay, and he takes a strike. Huff now playing third base. Morgan Ensberg, who had such a great year last year, struggled and is now on the disabled list with a shoulder injury. And Huff takes the breaking ball, 1-1. Aubrey Huff overall hitting at .278, 9 homers, 32 RBIs. Talk about a guy for whom it's been hard to find a position.
And you mentioned this lineup for the Astros. Other than Berkman, you have a third-place hitter with 28 RBIs, fifth-place hitter with 32 RBIs at this stage in the season. That doesn't always cut it.
Been a struggle for Phil Garner's team to score runs, but Huff has the first hit of the game. Clean single up the middle. And the Astros have a one-out base runner in the second.
Well, on the 2-1 pitch here, he's trying to sink that fastball as it runs away and down from Huff. And the best way to hit that if you're a left-handed hitter, just go right straight through the box with it, as Aubrey Huff did for the base hit.
So 1 out and 1 on, and here's Preston Wilson. Preston has 50 runs batted in, but he's just not hitting for the power that he used to. Had 3 knee operations a couple of years ago, and just has not quite been the same player since.
I remember when he got traded to the Nationals last year. I was over there and got to see him. I hadn't seen him since he was 10 years old. And Porter asked me what do you think of what I thought of Preston Wilson. I said, boy, he has a bigger handshake now than he used to. But just always a great kid.
Over the mound, Valentin with the flip, and no chance for a double play, but nicely done by Valentin, who every day does something in the field to make you take notice.
Just really has reverted himself to this position. Goes way up the middle, just this underhand toss, and good job by Jose Reyes here also. I think in the past, Reyes might have let that ball go to first, trying to make a crazy play, and this time he holds on to it.
I mean, he might have even tried to barehand that and do a quick turnaround, but he has learned his sense of timing has improved so much in the field. Here's Eric Munson, the catcher, takes ball 1. I mean, they talk about infielders having an internal clock.
Yeah, and that internal clock can get better, but infielders have to have those unique instincts in the infield, and his seems to be getting better and better as he gets older.
Munson, the backup to Brad Ausmus. He was the catcher for the Southern Cal team that won the College World Series in 1998. In fact, the Astros have 3 of those guys from that team. Morgan Ensberg, Jason Lane, who's in the minors right now, also were on that team. But Munson never caught after he was drafted by Detroit until this year.
Well, Preston deserves because Brad Ausmus has really struggled with the bat, trying to inject a little more offense. This is what happens when your team is struggling. Guys that usually don't play every day are injected to the lineup to try to get something going.
Yesterday, Phil Garner ended up using Mike Lamb at second base, a position he hadn't played in years. Ended up using Chris Burke at shortstop, where he had not been playing, just to try and improve their offense.
I'll tell you, my former manager had no problems with playing anybody out of position to get some at bats. From Howard Johnson playing short, Hubie Brooks, I know when I first came up in '84, was moved to shortstop.
How about Kevin Mitchell playing shortstop? On 2-0, Munson fouls it back 2-1. Of course, that was usually when Sid Fernandez was pitching and he didn't have a whole lot of ground balls.
Had a lot of those foul back, straight back.
Adam Everett hitting 8th in the order, waiting on deck. Rain delay of 54 minutes at the start, and Maine, the surprise starter tonight. He was supposed to go tomorrow. 2-2 to Munson, but El Duque, who was scheduled to start, struggled in his last outing, and Willie Randolph didn't want him to pitch on a night when the weather was questionable and he might have to start and stop. The on-deck circle used to be a lot less complicated. 2-2. Munson swings and misses at the best curveball we've seen from Maine, and that's his second strikeout. So Maine with a beautiful hook gets Munson to end the inning. Still no score. We go to the bottom of the second, and Shea with no score. Time for our Mets WB11 poll question, and the poll question was, will Lastings-Milledge be traded for pitching help? Well, 58% said yes, and 42% said no. That's a lot of people saying yes. Log on to WB11.com to vote on next week's poll. I vote no.
I vote no also, and let's make sure a tape of this game isn't sent to Lastings.
It's Carlos Delgado. And the reason I would vote no more than anything else is there's nobody out there who's worth Lastings-Milledge. I mean, if I thought that the Marlins were going to trade Dontrelle Willis, that would be one thing. And I think Omar Minaya feels the same.
There's a lot of guys out there that you'd be taking a chance on, that you might get 2 good starts, 1 bad start, 1 bad start, 2 good ones. Those are not the kind of guys you trade a Lastings Millage for.
2-0 to Delgado, who hit a home run yesterday in Cincinnati, and now Buchholz falls behind 3-0. Well, Delgado has been far more effective on the road. In fact, that's the lowest home average in the major leagues this year. There's a strike, 3-1, and even more shockingly was the guy who was second on the list. Ken Griffey Jr. playing in that hitter's park in Cincinnati.
Well, it's got to be because that uppercut gets a little more of an uppercut in that ballpark.
They didn't have a hit in the series against the Mets. 3-2 to Delgado. Just talking more about trading for pitching. I mean, the names that are out there, the Greg Maddoxes, the Levon Hernandezes, it would be great to pick up one of those guys and have a little more pitching depth, but not if you have to give up anything of value.
No, that would be for a single A maybe prospect that someone liked in your organization.
3-2 to Delgado, and there's ball 4, and the Mets have their first base runner. So the Mets have their first base runner, and David Wright coming up. Let's look at today's pitcher's high speed, brought to you by Verizon Online DSL, now at a great low price. And Taylor Buchholz topping out at 92, John Maine at 94.
Gary, John Maine has surprised me with his velocity, to tell you the truth. When he first came up, and maybe it was that finger problem, I saw him more like a 89 to 92 kind of guy, but he throws a lot of fastballs over 93, 94 miles an hour.
And a lot up in the zone. Here's David Wright, tied for 4th in the league with 79 runs batted in, tied with his teammate Carlos Beltran. And takes the fastball high. Talking about deals for pitchers where you don't give up a whole lot. I think that's what the Braves did yesterday, getting Bob Wickman from Cleveland.
I think that was a great trade. 15 for 18 this year in save opportunities. 45 for 50 last year. You're getting a veteran that knows how to close the game. A problem for the Braves this year.
Wright takes inside 2-0. And, the Braves have said all along, even when they had their darkest days a month ago, that they were going to be buyers and not sellers. And John sure holds true to his word. And as what the Braves are doing tonight, 2-2 with Smoltz on the mound in Philadelphia. But, the Braves are only 4.5 games out in that crowded wild card race, so why not?
Well, remember, the Braves at one point, their record was 33 and 46. And then they went out and won 12 of the next 16 to get back into that wild card.
The kid they gave up for Wickman, they think is a pretty good prospect, the catcher Max Ramirez, but the Braves appear to be set at catcher for the next 10 years with Brian McCann. There's a strike, 2-1. So it's a trade that made sense for them as Cliff Floydwick's on deck. But that has been their most glaring weakness, the Braves, their bullpen. The Astros have struggled in their pen at times this year, particularly their closer, Brad Lidge. As Wright goes the other way and fouls it off.
He seems to have gotten it straightened out lately, but early in the season they lost a lot of games, and that can demoralize the team also when you get ahead and your bullpen blows games. That happened to the Braves earlier this year.
Taylor Buchholz making his 17th start, and the Astros have been patient with him, and he's been terrific lately. 2-2 to Wright. And he misses with the breaking ball, and it's 3-2.
Gary, arguably, teams have built their team around their bullpen now, and such a strength, or they want it to be such a strength for their teams, that when it doesn't perform, it's almost more devastating than it ever has been in the history of the game.
3-2 to Wright with nobody out. Delgado not running. Up the middle, base hit. Delgado stops at second. The Mets have their first hit of the game. First and second, nobody out. And Adam Everett's got great range. He just couldn't get this one.
Well, Buchholz has been throwing a lot of balls down the middle of the plate. You're going to throw it outside to David Wright. He gets on top of that ball. You see that swing? Got on top of that ball. A lot of times when that pitch is away and up like that, it ends up being a fly ball, but good hitting by David Wright.
So David has the Mets' first hit, and here's Cliff Floyd with 2 men on.
I don't know if the fans at home can hear that, but I happen to love that they play Sanford and Son. The theme is Sanford and Son, when the hobbling Cliff Floyd comes to the plate with his Red Fox kind of walk.
Cliff's been hot. Last 8 games, 12 runs batted in, including a home run yesterday in Cincinnati. That's trying to grab the early lead here in the opening game of the series. And he takes ball 1, and here's yesterday when Cliff got on top of 1 and gave the Mets an early lead with his 10th home run of the year off Bronson Arroyo. Well, Phil Garner is going out to the mound. A little bit unusual at this point in the ball game for the manager to be visiting the mound.
Usually when a manager comes out to the mound and not the pitching coach this early, he is asking him. He might have seen something the pitcher did, a little quirk maybe that he thought maybe he was hurting or something was bothering him. Just want to make sure that everything's all right.
That's the other reason he might be going out there. A manager in this spot is for a motivational talk. Phil knows how to give those. They didn't call him old scrap iron for nothing.
Yeah. Competed against Phil Garner. He was quite a player, and I'll tell you, never gave India.
1-0 to Floyd. And Buchholz trying to come inside, misses. 2-0. Cliff has picked it up in those RBI situations.
It was almost like a basketball game for Cliff Floyd. He was 1 for 8 in the first half, wanted to come out and score a few points, and the second half said he was going to help the team, and so far so good.
What do they tell shooters? Keep on shooting. Now good hitters count for Floyd on 2-0. And Cliff takes a strike. Good pitch by Buchholz.
Well, Cliff Floyd didn't like that. As you see Jose Valentin on deck, thought that pitch was up, but Paul Emmel so far behind the plate. The home plate umpires had a very big strike zone. That's a pitch that is usually not called for a couple of reasons. It's up in the zone, and look how far Munson has to reach for it. Umpires very rarely call a pitch where a catcher has to reach that far for it.
The Astros are not over-shifting against Floyd, not with runners at first and second, but Everett, the shortstop, you see playing right behind Delgado. It'd be hard for Carlos to score on a single to the outfield.
In fact, they are giving Cliff Floyd a pretty good hole between first and second.
On 2-1, Cliff swings and misses at the changeup. 2-2.
Nice pitch by Taylor Buchholz. Anytime you're a young pitcher and you can throw a changeup or a breaking pitch behind in the count, you're always going to be successful.
Well, Buchholz is known for having a pretty good curveball. If he can master that changeup as well, certainly be a lot more successful. Delgado at second, right at first, and nobody out. No score, bottom of the second. And Cliff takes just inside, 3-2. Mets are facing a rookie pitcher for the 7th time in the last 15 games. And of course, if you're a manager, watching a rookie pitcher pitch can sometimes be exasperating. Buchholz walked 5 in 5 innings against Florida in his last start. He's already walked 1 here in the second inning. 3-2 to Floyd with nobody out. Runners not going, and Cliff pulls one down to first. Lamb goes to second. Not on the bag. Everybody's safe, and the bases are loaded. Second base umpire Brian Runge made the call. Everett reaching for that throw, unable to stay on the bag, and no argument for Phil Garner.
Well, one of the problems here, the spin by Lamb, and the throw is off the bag. So Everett had to reach for it. Garner just finally figured out that Runge called the runner safe.
Well, Runge was pretty emphatic about it immediately. But I guess you're right. I guess you didn't know until just now when he popped out of the dugout. So to be an error on Lamb, and that loads the bases with nobody out.
You know, it all started with the throw, though, Gary. The first baseman has to make that accurate throw. Always have to get that first out.
Well, Lamb has never been known as a glove man.
Yes, and he's never been known as someone with a strong arm either. Everett tries to stay on the bag, but Runge's got a perfect view of that call. And, you know, it takes an umpire It's got to be very courageous to make that call, because you know when you make it, the manager is going to come out and give you his 2 cents.
I guess the question then becomes, how far does the neighborhood play go on a play like that?
I think just like a strike zone, certain umpires have different neighborhood kind of zones. Some will give that play and others will call it more strictly.
And I think over the years they've started to call all things like that stricter because of the scrutiny and all the replays, and plays that might have been called outs years ago are not. So a big chance for the Mets. Bases loaded, nobody out. Here's Valentin. And he takes an off-speed pitch for a strike.
Good point, Gary. Just like I think the play at home plate, where the ball used to beat the runner, was always an out call, has now become one that runners have been called safe more and more.
Delgado at third, right at second, Floyd at first, nobody out. Mets trying to break the ice here in the second against the rookie right-hander Taylor Buchholz. And Valentin hits one to deep right field. Berkman back on the track at the wall. It's out of here. Jose Valentin with his second grand slam of the year, his 11th home run, 4-0 New York. And the Mets have been grand slam happy since the All-Star break. It's the Mets' 6th grand slam of the season, the second for Valentin, and he takes the curtain call. And one up near the head of Nady, although it was an off-speed pitch, 1-0. That's the 18th home run Taylor Buchholz has allowed this year, more than any rookie in the league. Fouled off by Nady, 1-1.
You know, a lot of things, Gary, can unnerve a young pitcher. A bad defensive play can unnerve a young pitcher also, and he lays this one in. Jose Valentin looked like a two-seamer trying to run it away, try to get a ground ball, double play ball, but that one stayed up in the strike zone.
9th career grand slam for Valentin, and the breaking ball gets Buchholz ahead of Nady, 1-2.
Well, this ball just stayed up. We were saying that the ball is not traveling. When it went off the bat, I thought it was an easy home run, but just clears the wall over Berkman's head.
Everett with good range to his left throws out Valentin, and that finally is the first out of the inning. So one away, and now John Maine, 4 runs to the good, will come to bat. Well, Valentin hit the grand slam against the Marlins right before the All-Star break. That was that Saturday doubleheader. He hit it in support of Mike Pelfrey. That's less than 2 weeks ago. And then since the All-Star break, the Mets have had 4 grand slams in 7 games. They had the 2 on Sunday night in Chicago, the 1 Beltran hit Tuesday in Cincinnati, and now Valentin does it again. So of the 6 grand slams the Mets have hit this year, 5 have come in the last 2 weeks.
I don't know about you, Gary, but comeback player of the year, Jose Valentin.
He has been phenomenal. I mean, Nomar Garciaparra probably gets the award for the league, but as far as the Mets are concerned.
Season's not over yet, and Garciaparra, of course, is a huge name. But Valentin has been so valuable for the Mets, filling a position after Hernandez went down hurt.
And Maine strikes out on 3 pitches. That's the second out. It's funny, though, you know, Willie Randolph was talking about Valentin in response to a question today, because when Valentin first took over the job in late May, Willie would never commit to him as his everyday second baseman. So he was asked today, are you now comfortable that he's going to be that the rest of the year? And Willie said, no. He said, he's getting the bulk of the playing time right now, but I have to see how it goes, whether he can stay healthy, whether he can keep up his production. So Willie, he grants no passes. Reyes takes a strike.
I think the only way that Willie can see it is that Valentin did not play an entire season last year. He is a little older and he's playing every day and just wants to be able to have a chance to grade him as he goes.
Aubrey Huff throws out Reyes, side retired, but a productive inning for the Mets. They take advantage of an error by Mike Lamb, and Valentin cashes them all in with 1 swing. his second grand slam of the season, 9th of his career, and John Maine has himself a 4-0 lead. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Now John Maine is looking for his first win. He's 0-3 as a starting pitcher this year. But now he's got himself a 4-0 lead to work with as Adam Everett leads off in the third. Everett, the Houston shortstop, not having a very good year with the bat. And he's got plenty of company. 1-0 to Everett. Everett is a marvelous defensive shortstop. And Ronnie, it looked the last couple of years as though he was making strides offensively.
Reminds me a little of Kevin Elster, who played for the Mets. That was a wonderful shortstop too, and had some power. And I always think that worked against him because he never became the kind of hitter that sprayed the ball around the field.
And you wonder, especially with that short porch in left field in Houston, whether that ruins some right-hand batters.
I think absolutely. I think you're thinking that, you know, they think of this guy as maybe a 15 to 20 home run guy with some runs batted in, but not this year.
Delgado will watch this one sail into the crowd. 2-2. Well, everything worked right for the Astros last year, especially coming down the stretch of the year, and really the last two seasons, when Phil Garner was able to punch it into gear and win the wild card both seasons. Andy Pettitte has been pitching better lately, but his ERA is still over 5. 2-2 pitch just misses and a full count to Everett.
It's interesting that he's been pitching better since Roger Clemens came back. Got his old buddy back, and Andy Pettitte, of course, for all New York fans, about as good as it got in the postseason.
To center field, hit well. Long run for Beltran, and he runs it down. Beltran got a great jump on that ball. Everett retired, 1 long out. Well, it's merengue night here at Shea Stadium, and Chris Cotter is standing by with one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history. Chris?
I am, Gary. It's Juan Marichal, and he's the only Dominican currently in the Hall of Fame. But Juan, as you and I were talking before going on the air here, that's going to change fairly quickly, isn't it?
I think so. As soon as those good players from the Dominican Republic start retiring, I think that we're going to have a bunch in Cooperstown.
Well, as Taylor Buchholz grounds out to Jose Reyes, 2 outs here in the top half of the third inning. You talk about Cooperstown. For you, obviously many years playing before getting to Cooperstown, who were some of your heroes growing up? Were they players that were playing in the States, or were they players that were playing in the Dominican Republic?
Well, it was a player. I remember when I was a kid, Duke Snyder was one of my heroes. And then Sam Magley. And Sam Magley, because they used to call it the barber. And I like that name, you know, and he was one of my heroes because he was a pitcher. And I want to be a pitcher like him. And thanks God, I make it to the major league, and I end up in Cooperstown.
Well, 243 career wins for you. Closing quickly is Pedro Martinez. What do you think about him? And would you mind it if he broke your record in terms of wins by a Dominican pitcher?
I don't mind. I know he's capable to do that because he's a great pitcher. And if he continues doing what he's doing right now, I know he will break it. And I hope someday he break it. I end up in the Hall of Fame, and I don't want to be by myself over there.
Well, he represents the Dominican Republic very well. Wouldn't you agree with that, just in terms of not only his wins, obviously, on the mound, but how he handles himself?
Oh, yes. Pedro is a very smart man. He knows what he has to do on the mound. He knows what he has to do outside of the mound, you know, and we feel we are very proud to have people like Pedro representing our country.
Well, another Dominican player on this Mets team, Jose Reyes, we saw him in that last half inning, and I saw a smile on your face. He just oozes talent, doesn't he?
What a young ball player. He's going to be another superstar. And we also have another man there that I have a lot of respect for him, Julio Cesar Franco. He also from Dominican.
Well, you're going to stay for the concert afterward, aren't you?
Oh yes, I'm going to stay. I hope the rain stops because I don't want to get wet. But I have to be there. This is going to be the number 10 version, you know. And the first one was dedicated to myself, and I'm very happy to be here. And I want to express my thanks to the New York Mets for having me for the 10 straight years at the Merengue Night at Shea.
All right, well, we'll see you then. Thanks a lot, Juan.
Thank you very much.
All right, Gary.
All right, I can't wait for Marichal to dance to the merengue. That comes up after the game. As we go to the bottom of the third, we check out the Toyota Lions score and that big fat 4 in the bottom of the second, all on one swing of Jose Valentin's bat. And the Mets come up in the bottom of the third against Taylor Buchholz with Paul Lo Duca leading it off. Lo Duca flying to left his first trip. And takes a strike from Buchholz. A walk, a single, an error. And Jose Valentin's second grand slam of the year have given the Mets his 4-run bulge. To right center field. That's in the gap. Berkman can't cut it off. It'll go to the wall. And Lo Duca in at second base with his 23rd double of the year. One behind David Wright for the club lead.
Well, nice hitting as another two-seamer from Buchholz trying to run it down and in. The Lo Duca does not get it there. Watch Munson. He's got to reach out over the plate. And Lo Duca all year, for you Met fans, you know what he can do, driving that ball to right center on fastballs out over the middle of the plate.
You know, we talk about control, but that's about command.
That's a strike, but some strikes are not as good as other strikes. And you have, you know, when a catcher's calling you for it in, that is not only to throw a strike in, but it's a purpose pitch to work away later.
Beltran takes inside.
Looks like that pitch to Beltran. Okay, it's a ball. That's good command. There was a purpose with that pitch. He's gotten Beltran at least thinking that he can come in off the plate.
Carlos flying to right his first trip. 1-1 to Beltran. Well, the Mets with 6 players with double-digit home runs. Cliff Floyd entered that category yesterday, and they're the only National League team with that many.
You would probably assume that Jose Reyes at some point might make it to 10.
He's got 8 right now. 2-1 to Beltran. Let's be happy if Reyes just gets on base 3 or 4 times a night.
Just have him keep that smile on his face all year long.
You see he's got a lesser bandage now on that left finger. The first day he came back in Cincinnati, he got 2 hard hit balls at him almost immediately, testing his resilience with that hand. And you know, I was talking before about Willie Randolph's reluctance to anoint Jose Valentin his everyday second baseman. That's another thing that Willie did. He almost publicly challenged Reyes to go out there and play with discomfort in his hand, and Reyes did. I think he might have done it anyway, but that's just Willie's approach to challenge his players. And they respond. Beltran takes a strike, 3-2.
A lot of that comes from how Willie was taught as a young player, that you did not sit in the tub in the training room, that if you, as soon as you are close to healthy enough to play, you're in that lineup. And if you weren't, veterans would let you know about it.
3-2 to Beltran, pulled to first. That'll advance the runner. Lamb to Buchholz for the out, but Lo Duca moves over to third. So a productive out by Beltran, and now Delgado will try and get the run in. I mean, we talk all the time in sports about athletes, especially baseball players who have to play every day, learning the difference between being hurt and being injured.
You're going to be hurting, have aches and pains all year long after the first game. I mean, that's just how it works. So your ability to bounce back. Paul Lo Duca, think about Paul Lo Duca, the catcher, every day playing with an injury right now.
And that injury is not going to get any better till the season's over, that torn ligament in his thumb. Infield in for Delgado, with the Mets already up 4-0. And Buchholz moves him back 1-0.
You see the infield in, can't afford Well, Phil Garner doesn't feel like he can afford to give up any more runs at this point.
The way his offense is going, he may already be too far behind. The Astros 13th in the National League in runs scored. Delgado walked and scored in front of Valentin's grand slam his first time up. Delgado has said he's feeling a little bit better the last couple of days. Had a double on Wednesday night, a home run last night, yesterday afternoon. But it's been a long way out of the muck for Delgado. 2-0 to Carlos.
You know, Gary, at this point, Carlos Delgado is Carlos Delgado's hitting coach. I mean, he's the one that knows himself better than anyone else, better than Rick Down. Rick Down, of course, can point out some things that, you know, in his foundation, in his approach. But Carlos Delgado has been in slumps before, and he's the one that's been able to get himself out.
And it's not a matter of him identifying what's wrong. He knows what's wrong. To center field, that'll get the run in. Caught by Burke. LaDuca tags, and LaDuca trots in to score. 5-0 New York. Hard hit sacrifice fly by Delgado. His 59th run batted in.
And remember, guys, as you see Buchholz with this pitch, it's not always base hits that get you out of a slump. Sometimes it can be a sacrifice fly, as he does on this tough pitch. This was down and away, 93 miles an hour from Buchholz, and he stayed with it, hit it up the middle, something he has not been able to do during the slump.
And that's what Keith was talking about yesterday, using center and left center to get himself righted again until he feels comfortable enough to go back to yanking the ball to right. Here's David Wright, who singled up the middle in the midst of the Mets rally in the second, and he takes a slider inside. Taylor Buchholz 6-7 on the year, a 5.3 ERA. But as Ronnie mentioned, he's gotten better as the year has gone along, and you look at the batting average against in his last 5 starts, 143, and you see how good he can be. Wright swings through the fastball, 1-2.
He's got some nice movement on his fastball. He throws 2 different ones, a 4-seam and a 2-seam there. That ball's nice. If he can keep the ball down, I think that's the key for Buchholz. He has a lot more life down in the strike zone.
1-2 to right, and he chases the breaking ball. Went around. Munson puts a tag on him, and that ends the inning. But the Mets get the double from LaDuca. They move him over, and Delgado gets him in. And now it's 5-0 New York as we go to the 4th. You may have heard that this September the WB11 is changing into the CW11, and some of you have asked if that means no more Mets here on Channel 11. Well, not to worry. The name of the station may be changing, but the CW11 will still be the place to cheer on your Mets for years to come. Mike Lamb takes a strike from John Maine. Lamb fly to center his first time up. 1-1. The Astros are in the final stop of a 3-city road trip. They split 4 in Florida, lost 2 out of 3 in Chicago. 2-1 to Lamb, and Lamb has really struggled on this trip, just 2 for 20, but he's had plenty of company in that. Popped up. David Wright. 1 away. But John Maine continues to cruise. He's had just 1 base runner through the first 11 batters he's faced.
Well, I think he's going at it in such a great way. When you're a young pitcher and no one's had an at-bat against you, or hardly any of the players have seen you, go after them with that fastball at least the first time through the lineup.
Well, you know what's going to have to happen if Maine has a big day today. Chris Burke stands in, and he hits one to deep left field. Back goes Floyd, back toward the wall, and did he get it? He did! A fantastic play by Cliff Floyd as he takes a home run away from Chris Burke. What a play!
Oh, you have to be brave on this play. He just gives up his body, leaps into the fence, and takes that back. What a play by Cliff Floyd.
Well, Chris Burke hit his first big league home run in this ballpark last year. It was memorable for everybody because he hit it off Pedro Martinez in the 7th inning at a time when Pedro was working on a no-hitter. Well, Burke almost had another Shea Stadium home run, but Cliff Floyd took it away. So 2 out and nobody on. Here's Lance Berkman. I was going to say, if Maine winds up pitching a good game today, then the next time he's going to start, they have to surprise him the day before and do what they did tonight. 1-1 to Berkman.
You mean he'll go to pitching coach Rick Peterson? Rick, am I going to get another start? We'll let you know. Right? Just
you scheduled to pitch Saturday. Oops, Friday, you're pitching. And if it works once, you don't want to mess with a good formula. Berkman struck out his first trip. Fouls this one back, 1-2.
He'll be the Doppler pitcher. Anytime the Doppler reads it's going to be rain, start Maine.
The rain for Maine makes him pitch like Johnny Singh.
Yeah, there you go.
1-2 to Berkman. A little bloop, and that's into right field for a base hit. So Berkman has the Astros' second hit. 2 out and a runner on. This season, your Tri-State Hyundai dealers and the WB11 team up to help kids strike out cancer. Every strikeout recorded by a Met pitcher will add $100 to the Hope and Heroes Children's Cancer Fund. If you'd like to help, please call 212-305-1420 for more information. Here's Aubrey Huff, who before tonight was the only Astros hitter in the lineup who had faced Maine before. Had a base hit his first time up and hits this one a long way to left center. But Floyd near the wall reels it in. Now that was cake for Cliff compared to the last one. As he goes over the wall to Rob Burke and then merely to the wall to get Huff. And John Maine couldn't be more appreciative. Neither could Chavez. He knows about defense. 5-0 New York. Time for our Dodge trivia question. David Wright celebrating the 2-year anniversary today of his big league debut. Who are the 4 current Mets with a longer continuous tenure with the Mets than David Wright?
Pretty funny question, by the way, because this is how the generation of baseball is. Guys change teams so much that a 23-year-old guy would be the 5th tenured player on a team.
With 2 years of service. Here's Cliff Floyd, and he bounces one foul. Well, Cliff leading off the inning after making this marvelous home run saving catch.
And you know what? That's a great thing to happen for John Maine. And as you see, a good team rewards their defensive plays just as much as they do the home run plays. They might not have the dances, but they still reward that.
And he drives one deep down the right field line, but foul way back in the mezzanine. Crank that baby. Just a little bit too quick on the changeup.
Well, you see the changeup. That's a circle with the index finger and the thumb on the left side of the ball. You choke that so you take the speed off, but that ball is middle. And that's usually what happens to that, although a little quick by Cliff.
0-2 to Floyd. Loops this one to shallow right. Berkman's got to race in, and he gets there in time. 1 away. So 1 out and nobody on. And here's Jose Valentin. Here's what he did his first time up. Bases loaded, nobody out. Bang. First run of the game brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. It's got to be awfully nice for a pitcher when 5 times in 2 weeks your team gets 4 runs on 1 swing.
Oh boy, allows you to be very aggressive on that mound.
Hit to left. Wilson toward the line. 2 out. Something awkward about the way Preston Wilson is running.
He runs almost like his feet are hurt or his feet are on fire. As you see him, you know, the one thing about an outfielder, what do they always tell you, Gary? You want an outfielder whose head doesn't bounce up and down. And that's what Preston does. And it makes it very difficult to make the play look easy.
Want to run on your toes. so your head doesn't bounce. Here's Nady with 2 out and nobody on. Fouls it back with a big cut.
One last thing about Cliff Floyd's play, that great play to rob the home run. John Maine gave up 3 solo home runs in his last game. You make a play like that, take it back over the fence, he's think, you know, if it goes over the fence, he's thinking, oh boy, I'm getting hurt by the home run ball again. Maybe lose a little confidence. But no, kept it in the ballpark and now can continue to stay aggressive. As Cliff is showing you how humid it is here at Shea Stadium.
Well, Cliff had a marvelous defensive year last year to go with his great offensive year. And even early this season when he was struggling with the bat, the defense has still been there. 0-2 to Nady, and he takes ball 1. John Maine waiting on deck. Lee is taken to hitting Nady 8th against right-handers. With Valentin ahead of him, and he rips a base hit down the line. Wilson chasing it, but Nady will easily have 2 bases. So Xavier, who had a double as a pinch hitter to get the Mets' 10th inning rally started yesterday, picks up his 13th double of the year.
Well, this is just a hanging slider. Taylor Buchholz so far has been trying to work on a slider, a pitch that his curveball is a great curveball for a strikeout, but he has a hard time throwing it for a strike. Been trying to work on a slider, something he can throw in the strike zone. That was just a spinner in the middle of the plate.
Well, the Mets only have 4 hits off Buchholz, but 3 of the 4 have been for extra bases. Valentin's grand slam, and now doubles by LaDuca and Nady. And here's Maine, who's looking for his first big league hit. 0 for 7 after striking out his first time up. And he takes ball 1. Maine looking for his first win as a Met. He's got 2 big league wins. They came with the Orioles. But he has certainly pitched well enough to win now on a couple of occasions. And pitching wonderfully tonight. 2-0 to Maine. Another rookie versus rookie pitching matchup. When Maine last started against the Marlins, the Mets played a doubleheader that day with Florida, and rookies started both games for both teams. Remember, Mike Pelfrey pitched the nightcap, his big league debut, and the Mets got him 17 runs after Maine lost 3-2 in the opener.
Yeah, John Maine was saying, where was that in the first game?
So he got his grand slam tonight, though. There's a strike, 2-1. Sometimes it's just not fair. Reyes waits on deck. Jose had a great poker hand in yesterday's game. 4 9s.
Yes.
3-1 to Maine.
It's not many times you write F9 4 times, especially for Jose Reyes.
Now, the last thing you want from Reyes is for him to get back into the habit of hitting the ball in the air.
But after missing those 6 games, though, he's going to be a little rusty. It might take him a little time.
3-1 to Maine. And he lashes one foul. A little late, but had a pretty good swing at that.
Well, he needed to start this a little earlier. But head on the ball. And Buchholz does throw very hard.
3-2 to Maine. Leaking in that Mets dugout like everywhere else. Fouled away.
I'll tell you, when a pitcher is late on another pitcher and hitting balls down the right field line, you'll have guys, your own guys, screaming at you at the plate. Hit the ball fair. Hit it fair. Come on. That's what a lot of the guys will do, especially to a rookie pitcher.
The only thing he wanted a rookie pitcher.
That's right.
He's making Buchholz work, but he takes a call, 3rd strike, and the inning is over. 4th strikeout for Buchholz, but the Mets clear the pitcher's spot. We go to the 5th. Maine may not have a hit, but he's got himself a 5-0 lead. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Hyundai. Take the Hyundai Challenge. Visit the HyundaiChallenge.com. John Maine takes it into the 5th inning. He's thrown just 45 pitches in the first 4, which is a recipe for success.
You know, I was thinking about John Maine coming out through the Orioles organization. It's got to be very difficult for rookie pitchers to come up in that difficult AL East, facing lineups in Boston, Toronto, and of course the New York Yankees.
Also coming up in that ballpark at Camden Yards. A terrific hitter's park. Here's Preston Wilson to lead things off. Preston made his debut with the Mets back in 1998. He was here for about a week, and then the Mets made a deal that really helped turn the franchise around when they packaged Preston and got Mike Piazza. So the Astros bullpen getting active. Fernando Nieve, the right-hander. Two and one to Preston. John Maine out of UNC Charlotte. The Orioles got him in the 6th round after his junior year. Maine was expected to be a #1 draft pick. He had a great sophomore season, but you can't be drafted after your sophomore year. And he had a poor junior year, which is why he fell to the 6th round. Something very similar to what happened to Mike Pelfrey we were talking about last week, where he had a great junior year in high school, not a very good senior year. And so he wound up going to college instead of signing after being drafted in the later rounds. Valentin catches Wilson's pop up, one away. So David Wright, second anniversary of his big league debut. Who are the 4 current Mets with a longer continuous tenure with the Mets? Well, another 23-year-old among others. Traxel, Floyd, Glavine, Reyes. That's it. In 2 years, the other 20 players have all turned over. That's amazing.
Hard for me to even, when you asked the question, it was hard for me to even believe that there are only 4. But here's one of them.
A Met of long standing now. Right? It took a long time for people to stop thinking of him as an Atlanta Brave, but now he's next to Traxel and Floyd. He's the senior member. To short, and Reyes with a routine play throws out Munson, 2 down. It's coming easily for John Maine right now. 2 out of the top of the 5th, and the #8 hitter Adam Everett comes up.
No, I was talking about Adam Everett. Like Kevin Elster. I always thought Kevin Elster was going to evolve into a 280. I don't think he was a 300 hitter ever. But I thought he was going to turn into a 280, 285 hitter. Have a lot of home runs. Drive in a lot of runs and also play that fantastic defense. It just never happened until later in his career.
Well, I wonder if he hadn't hurt his shoulder, how things would have progressed for Kevin, because once he hurt his shoulder, it was amazing that he came back at all.
He hurt his shoulder, of course, his throwing shoulder, and also always seemed to have aches and pains, hamstring pulls in his legs. That will hurt your progress hitting also.
Well, then he came back with Texas and had that year he had, what, 28 home runs? And then playing for the Dodgers, the first game ever at Pac-Bell Park, he had 3 home runs. So there was the pop you were looking for.
I needed it when I was pitching. That's what I was talking about.
And Maine strikes out Everett to end the inning. 3rd strikeout for John Maine, who's turning in a gem in his 4th start as a Met. Top of the batting order, Reyes coming up. Looking for a few laughs? Then spend some time with the Barones. Twice every weeknight on the WB11. Catch the antics of the family that makes everyone else's look normal. See for yourself why everybody loves Raymond. Weeknights at 7:30 and 11:30 on the WB11. Now Rick Peterson has every reason to be happy with John Maine's performance. He's barely saying anything to him. Check out the Toyota line score.
What's he need to say? 2-hitter through 5 innings.
Not only that, but an efficient 2-hitter. He hasn't walked anybody. Thrown only 57 pitches in 5 innings. He could go 9. Does anybody go 9?
No, yeah, I was looking at you like.
Here's Reyes. 0 for 2 tonight. Hits the curveball right to Lamb. And Jose never has to leave the batter's box. 1 pitch, 1 out in the bottom of the 5th. Well, Reyes struggling a bit right now. He's 0 for his last 10. He talked about coming back from the hand problem.
I think Reyes, probably more than anyone on the team, when he misses 6 or 7 days, it takes him a little longer to come back. Just because he was on such a great streak and really was swinging the bat as good as he has all year long. So those 6 days really cost him.
Cost everybody else in that dugout, too. He drove them crazy. Here's Loduca, who doubled and scored in the third. Takes a strike from Buchholz. So Loduca continues his hot hitting. He's got his batting average right to 300. Lou's going to have to be careful with Loduca the second half, because his history is that he does not keep his average up the second half of the season.
Well, he's such an intense player, and I'm sure that's going to sap some of his strength. He's also not the biggest guy, so it's hard for him to keep up his strength. And the most important part of that equation will be Ramon Castro. Now when he starts, he gets how productive he can be. He's been so productive all year long. And Willie's ability to, you know, maybe some night games to give Loduca off, so he almost gets 2 days off instead. Well, he's tried to do that this year.
Yeah, so far he's mostly used Castro day game after night game, and that's good, because you know then you don't subject Loduca to that intense heat in the middle of the summer. But he might need an extra day or two here or there. 1-2 to Paul. And also remember that he's playing with a torn ligament in his left thumb, and it's funny, I was talking to Paul about it the other day, and he said the doctor said we should really go get another MRI, and he said why should we? I'm not going to stop playing no matter what it says. That's him, though. Toward the hole, cut off by Huff, and floats the throw to first, 2 away. It was like a changeup to first base by Aubrey Huff. This is not a great defensive Astros team.
Well, you have a lot of guys playing out of position. Aubrey Huff, they've always tried to find a position for him, whether it's third base or first. You've got an infielder in center field. You've got 2 guys in right and left who don't run as well as they did anymore, so cannot cover as much ground.
And you got a guy catching tonight who hadn't caught in 5 years before this season. Here's Beltran with 2 out. And he takes a strike.
As you see the pitcher's talk, that's a good person to sit next to Mike Pelfrey. Very smart.
You know what makes Pelfrey smart? He's smart enough to ask the questions, because Glavitt's not going to come to him.
Tom's always said that he never goes to young pitchers and tries to impart any knowledge, because he doesn't know if they'll be listening anyways. But if a guy comes and asks him, then he takes that as an extreme compliment. And I'm sure he's not trying to infiltrate him with too much, but just trying to give him some of the things that helped him as a young player.
But then again, you've got Tom Glavine, a stylish lefty, and Mike Pelfrey, a hard-throwing righty. How much can Glavine talk to Pelfrey about pitching?
I think he can help him with stuff like watching a young pitcher like Taylor Buchholz, some of the things that he might be doing right or wrong.
Beltran rips one toward the right field corner. Berkman can't cut it off with the slide. Beltran might try for 3, turning on the Jets, and no relay by Biggio. It's a 3-base hit for Beltran, his first of the year. Good effort by Berkman, but he just couldn't cut it off.
Well, the pitch by Buchholz is the pitch that's given him trouble all day long. He's trying to run that fastball away from the left-handers, and he's keeping it up in the strike zone. Beltran's able to pull that ball. It's the same pitch that Valentin hit for a grand slam.
Well, I'm surprised at this. Bill Shannon has just charged an error on Berkman, calling it a double for Beltran, allowing him to go to third on the error.
Well, that's a bad call, because Berkman was trying to do everything in his power to try to stop that from being a triple. If he plays that against the fence, Beltran goes around.
Especially on a wet outfield like this. Here's Delgado with a runner at third and 2 out.
See, he's doing everything he can to get to that ball, because if he doesn't, that ball goes to the wall, and it's a stand-up triple.
Now it's ruled a double and an error. So take away Beltran's first triple of the year. 1-1 to Delgado. Carlos has walked and scored and delivered a run with a hard-hit sacrifice fly. So he doesn't have an official at bat, but he's got a run scored and a run batted in. Huff off the line. Buchholz out of the full windup. That creates an opportunity, although Beltran is not really taking advantage of it right now, creeping down the line.
Well, he's so quick inside, Carlos Delgado. Of course, pulling the ball is where the power is. As you see Russ Springer in the bullpen for the Astros. But sometimes it's a good idea to take some singles, take some doubles the other way to get back in the groove.
He drives one deep down the right field line toward the corner. It's out of here! Carlos Delgado with a 2-run homer, his 24th of the year. 7-0 New York. Well, Rick Down was on with us the other day, and Carlos was saying that he has seen some signs that he was starting to feel it. And those signs are coming stronger. Home runs now in back-to-back games.
Well, I love it, Carlos. You shut me up with one swing of the bat.
A little too much smoke in right field. Lance Berkman has a cloud over his head. It's probably that air he just got charged with. They're going to have to wait for that cloud to clear.
That's like playing in a summer league in Cape Cod when the mist used to roll in.
We had one game here at Shea years back, stopped because of fog. That's for playing the Pirates back in the 70s, and Bill Robinson was playing in the outfield for the Pirates and couldn't find a ball in the fog, and they had to stop the game. Right to Biggio on a hop, and another changeup from that Houston infield. But the Carloses combine, Beltran with a double, and then Delgado with a 2-run homer, and the Mets cruising 7-zip behind John Maine here at Shea. Be part of the celebration at Shea with Mets season tickets. Prorated packages include postseason ticket purchase options and priority access for season tickets in the new Mets ballpark. To get your season tickets for the rest of '06, call 718-507-TIXX or go to Mets.com today. Willie Taveras pinch hitting for the Astros. Taylor Buchholz is done after 5 innings, allowing 7 runs on 6 hits. John Maine working on a 2-hitter. 1-1 to Taveras, who appears to have pretty much lost his starting center field job.
Well, you and I talked about it before. He had a fine rookie campaign, but Nieve back up on the bullpen for the Astros.
Broken bat grounder. Wright has to get away, out of the way of the bat as Reyes throws out Taveras. Wright dodged the bat. Reyes got the ball. 1 out. Well, everybody enjoys a nice long day at the beach. Chris Cotter, some people had a little longer day at the beach than usual yesterday.
Yeah, they did. The Brooklyn Cyclones game went a record 26 innings yesterday. And, you know, amazingly, it started at noon and ended at 6:45. That's a really quick game considering they got the equivalent of almost 3 games in. Just a few numbers that are mind-boggling about the game. 43 total runners were left on base in the game. Mark Wright, who was a position player for the Cyclones, actually ended up pitching, and he got the loss, giving up 2 runs in the top half of the 26th inning. He actually went the 25th and 26th innings, pitching 2 innings and giving up 3 earned runs. And then the biggest number of them all, Dustin Martin, who is nicknamed Sunshine, went 0 for 11 in the game. I got to ask you two guys, what do you think Keith would do if he ever went 0 for 11 in a game?
I don't know. I mean, when the Mets played that 19-inning game, he hit for the cycle.
I got to tell you, I don't think Sunshine was full of much sunshine after the game yesterday.
That might have turned the whole personality thing around.
Well, one, Keith was too good of a hitter to ever go 0 for 11, but if he ever did, he would be the Prince of Darkness for the next 24 hours. Well, absolutely.
Well, you know what he said? The first thing about a slump, don't go home and put your head in the oven. And Biggio is called out, and he is incredulous.
Well, you'll see the check swing. Let's see if he goes through. Well, it looks like he went through, but usually the veteran like Biggio will get this call from first base umpire Mike Winters.
So 2 out and nobody on. 4 strikeouts for Maine. And now here's Mike Lamb, who's 0 for 2. And he rifles one toward right center field. Beltran gets over to cut it off. Lamb will hold at first. There's a very nice play by Beltran to keep Lamb at first base. Only the 3rd hit off John Maine.
Well, this gives you a little indication of the difference in outfield speed. The Mets have a lot of speed in the outfield, and Beltran, usually this ball gets to the wall, but he gets to it, gets in fine throwing position, and throws a strike here into Jose Reyes.
So 2 out. Lamb still at first, and here's Chris Burke, who nearly had his 8th home run of the year last time up, but Cliff Floyd went over the wall in left to take it away. Whereas Chris Burke has the most famous home run in Houston Astros history. That's what was Billy Hatcher's previously the most famous one, and that's the game they lost.
Yes, I think that Burke's supplanted that one.
Hit it in the 18th inning as the ball goes to the backstop and Lamb goes to second, ending the longest postseason game ever. Wild pitch on Maine. So a runner in scoring position for the Astros for the first time in the game. There's a strike. Burke's home run in the 18th inning against the Braves, ending that playoff series. Hit it off Joey Devine on the 553rd pitch of that game last October. The shortstop. And Reyes guns down Burke's side, retired. So John Maine keeps rolling along. 6 shutout innings. He's allowed just 3 hits as he works with a 7-0 lead. We go to the bottom of the 6th inning here at Shea. That's with a 7-0 lead. This season, the 6th inning means it's time to swing for sandwiches. If a Met hits a home run this inning, you can log on to WB11.com for your chance to score a $100 gift card at Subway. Rookie right-hander Fernando Nieve takes over the pitching for Houston.
You know, the thing about Nieve, they haven't figured out really what to do with him. He has started 11 games. This will be his 11th relief appearance. Some people see him as a number 3 starter. Other people see him as a late inning closer. So they're trying, the Houston Astros are trying to find out where to fit Nieve into their program, but does have outstanding stuff, throws in the mid-90s.
Nieve was starting games until some guy named Clemens signed. Here's Cliff Floyd, and he's had himself quite a day already with his defense. Cliff has also reached on there and flied out. But his biggest contribution was going over the left field fence to take a home run away from Chris Burke, and now he shoots one down the right field line foul. 1 ball, 1 strike.
So you're saying if you're Fernando Nieve, and as soon as Roger Clemens made that first minor league start, you go into Phil Garner and say, Phil, you know, I can pitch out of the bullpen because you want to stay on that big league team.
Well, how about the fact that the Astros just sent their leading winner down to the minor leagues? Wandy Rodriguez was sent down because they're going to make room for Brandon Backey, who's going to make his first start off the disabled list tomorrow. 1-2 to Floyd. Fernando Valentin with a grand slam tonight waiting on deck. Did I say Fernando? Jose Valentin. Who is Fernando Valentin? It's Fernando Nieve on the mound, and he strikes out Floyd with a nice looking fastball. 1 away.
Well, that's a good slider. See how that comes out of that fingers, almost like a football, throwing a football grip. The bottom just dropped out of that against Cliff Floyd. Starts in the outside corner, and the bottom just drops out.
So 1 out and nobody on. Here's Valentin. Hit the grand slam back in the 2nd. And the Mets have not looked back. Valentin now with 11 home runs, 41 runs batted in, and just a little over 200 at bats. 1-1 to Valentin. Now the Phillies with a 3-run 8th inning go in front of the Braves. John Smoltz started that game. Don't know who the Phillies got the runs off in the 8th, but Braves bullpen just has been a disaster, and that's why they went out and picked up Bob Wickman. Popped up. Everett retreating. 2 out. So 2 out and nobody on. And the Mets' upcoming schedule brought to you by Chevrolet. National TV game tomorrow, and then we're back with you on Sportsnet New York on Sunday for the final game of this series before the Cubs come in for 3, including the day camp day on Wednesday afternoon. Maybe we could play 26 innings like the Cyclones did on camp day yesterday. Nady swings and misses. Let's have an off day Thursday. It'll work out perfectly.
My good friend Keith Hernandez is doing that game on Wednesday. He'll be pulling his hair out if you guys go 26 innings.
He'll look like me. Toward the hole, and Everett can't get this one, and Nady has his second hit of the night. So a 2-out single for Xavier.
Well, sometimes it's just good to be able to find a hole as Nieve throws that slider. Catches a lot of the plate, but just really a ground ball hit by Nady and found the hole. See how that ball hit the lip, which kind of propelled it forward past Adam Everett.
So the Mets have their 7th hit of the game, and here's Maine, who's been up twice and struck out both times, and he'll be happy as heck just to get a 4th at bat after this. He is pitching one well of a game, and you know, you can kind of see it coming as he was late on that first one by Nieve.
Yeah, you really could. You know, it's hard to say that someone is getting better when he gives up 3 solo home runs, but every other out in that game was just wonderful by John Maine. So just watching him and watching his aggressiveness is something that if you're manager Willie Randolph, you just have to love. A young pitcher who wants to throw the ball in the strike zone, not afraid of contact. Those are all great things.
We talked before about Pelfrey absorbing knowledge from the older pitchers, and Maine has been doing a great job of that. Strikes out for the 3rd straight time, but he'll go back to the mound with a 7-0 lead. But a big night for the Mets. Pelfrey gets his next turn on Sunday against these Astros. We go to the 7th. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by your Tri-State Volkswagen dealers. Visit tristatevw.com. Now it's been a splendid night for John Maine. 6 shutout innings, 3 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts, just 69 pitches in 6 innings. And he'll face the best hitter in the Astros lineup, Lance Berkman, to lead things off. Berkman made his 4th All-Star team this year. He is one of those stars who flies under the radar. Tore up his knee a couple of winters ago, which short-circuited his early season last year.
Well, I think in the National League, most people, when they think of someone flying under the radar until this year, was Bobby Abreu for Philadelphia. But with all the trade talks and him going to different teams, he is no longer flying under the radar. So Berkman has that mantle.
Fouls it away.
And you always have to remember, too, he played on a team with Craig Biggio, Jeff Bagwell. So when you play with those kind of stars, sometimes you do not get the credit you deserve.
Throw in Roger Clemens to that mix. It takes a lot of attention. Berkman's a guy who kind of had to fight his way uphill. Hit over 500 as a senior in high school, and nobody drafted him. So he went to Rice University and became an All-American. Hit 41 home runs one year. 41 in college baseball.
It's a mockery of the game.
Aubrey Huff on deck. But you know what his teammates called him at Rice? They called him Fatty Kruk. And you can get the idea why. He's got that John Kruk body. It's a little more toned than he was probably back in his early days at Rice.
Well, I can definitely see it, and both he and John Kruk could rake.
And there went Loduca's mask. That's why you wear a mask. Changeup misses, 2-2. That's a great pitch count to start the 7th inning. And again, the changeup, 3-2.
He's been throwing a lot more changeups than he has, but as the game has gone on, he's starting to give it away a little bit, slowing down his arm action, and good hitters can see that. And Lance Berkman is one of the best hitters in the National League.
Well, you got a 7-0 lead. Might as well challenge him here, right?
This should be a fastball, just trying to beat him.
Popped it up on the infield. Right coming in. And he's got it, one away. Well, that formula has worked for John Maine. Challenge the hitters. Check out the Toyota out-of-town scoreboard. The Cubs, who rarely win, facing the Nationals, who rarely win. Cubs have the early advantage.
Boy, watching those games and watching you guys do the games in Chicago, that's a woeful sight watching that Cub team play right now.
St. Louis at L.A. later on. That's a big series, and Valentin snatches the line drive by Aubrey Huff, who by far in the Astros lineup has hit the ball best tonight, but just 1 for 3 after Valentin snags the liner.
And he's the only one that had an at-bat against John Maine.
Well, he didn't pass along the knowledge very well.
Not yet, anyway.
Here's Preston Wilson. Preston has grounded into a forced play and popped up. Well, the Mets had to go deep into their bullpen in the Cincinnati series. They used 4 relievers in the game. Pelfrey started on Tuesday night. Then Traxel had to leave in the 4th after the rain delay on Wednesday night. And they used 4 relievers again yesterday. So Maine can go deep into this one. It would certainly be helpful. Right backing up. Still has time to throw out Wilson. Side retired. Another quick inning for John Maine. This has been a coming out party for him. We go to the bottom of the 7th. Home 7th inning. Jose Reyes leads off against Fernando Nieve and takes a strike. Our good buddy Ethan Wilson just came in with the numbers on Merengue night. This is the 10th Merengue night. In the first 9, the Mets have gone 7-2. But here's the but. Generally, there's been a Dominican player do something special on Merengue night, and since Reyes is the only Dominican in the lineup, he's 0 for 3. He's got to do something here. 1-2 the count. Mets have 3 Puerto Ricans in the lineup tonight, but you know that counts only halfway on Merengue night. Everett will have to hurry. And Reyes beats it out. There you go. A hit on Merengue night for Jose Reyes.
Well, Adam Everett, who is so smooth with the glove, did everything you can do to try to get Reyes. And just the physical gifts that Jose Reyes has with those 2 legs beats that play out.
Here's the caveat with Reyes on Merengue night. He's not a real merengue guy. He's more reggaeton.
Okay.
If you know the subtle differences in the types of music. But he'll be out there dancing tonight, don't you think?
I think so. Absolutely. You have to.
Very little stops Reyes from dancing, and they're not going to hold him on. As Loduca takes a strike.
Reggaeton would have to have a reggae flair. Is that what you're saying?
I guess. You're going into territory I'm just not
mentioned it.
in. Only because he told me that. I nodded. He said reggaeton, and I nodded. 0-2 to Loduca. On the Nieve. Hoping to get a ground ball double play here. So you know those unwritten rules about when you're not supposed to steal bases? I get 7-0 in the 7th.
Yes.
Covers that one, right?
That's official.
And that should be a double play. Biggio to Everett and on to first. 2 out and nobody on. So Nieve generates the 4-6-3 double play.
Well, that ball was hit awfully hard by Paul Loduca, but you know the Astros, that's their 112th double play. It leads the National League. They made it look easy. Biggio to Everett to land.
So 2 out and nobody on. Here's Beltran. And Carlos takes the ball. Beltran ripped a double, which probably should have been scored a triple his last time up, then scored in front of Delgado's home run. Mets have hit 2 home runs tonight. Valentin with a grand slam, Delgado a 2-run shot. Mets have now hit 132 home runs for the year, second to the Cincinnati Reds. Phillies held on to beat the Braves 6-5, so the Mets, if they can win tonight, will have a 13-game lead in the National League East. That would match their largest. Mets also tonight, for the first time this season, trying to get to 20 games over 500. And I know for teams that aspire to big things, that's kind of a benchmark.
It's the benchmark. Once you get to 20, you like to get to 20, to tell you the truth, before the All-Star break. You're aspiring to great things. And then once you come past the All-Star break, then you try to get to 30, and the push to 35 to 40 obviously gives you a championship season.
Boxed around by Munson 2-2. Of course, to win 100 games, you have to be 38 games over 500, and that's a magic number. 1986 team won 108. That's up in all-time territory.
Seattle that one year, what? 116.
Yeah, but they didn't go anywhere in the postseason. Three-two to Beltran, ball 4, and Delgado will get another turn it back with a runner aboard. First walk given up by Nieve. And here's Delgado. And you have to be thinking, well, maybe he's in that mode of breaking out big.
I still think that at bat after Carlos Beltran got LaDuca over to third after LaDuca doubled, he was able to hit that sac fly to center field. Those are the little at bats that allow him to get back into his game. And of course, I was talking about foolishly that he should go the other way a little bit, and he taught me as he hit that long home run to right field. But
and here that home run is in the 5th inning.
You know, sometimes a strength can be a weakness. He loves that ball down and in, and when he's in a slump, the ball is bouncing, he's swinging over it. But if they elevate it at all, a foot or two off the ground, that's his power zone.
Well, the one he hit yesterday off Bronson Arroyo was a slider low and in. And he did it again tonight.
And what I mean by that is it's his strength, because that's where he can hit it for home runs. But it's also his weakness, because anything around that zone, he's going to be swinging.
Now Nieve ahead of him 0-2. Tapped to short. A rare time they didn't have the overshift on, and what do you know? The shortstop makes the play. Normally that shortstop against Delgado is 30 feet to the right of second base. We go to the 8th, 7-0. John Maine starts the 8th inning with only 80 pitches under his belt. Throws ball 1 to Eric Munson. Munson has struck out and grounded out 0 for 2. And the changeup misses 2-0.
Well, John Maine already has pitched longer into this game than any game in his career. 6 1/3 was his best before this.
And the longest outing by a Mets starter in a long time. Now behind Munson 3-0. Mets starting pitching overall has been struggling the last 3 weeks. But Maine has certainly given them a shot in the arm tonight. But he walks Munson on 4 pitches. That's his first walk of the night. So the Astros have the leadoff man on. You may have heard that this September the WB11 is changing into the CW11, and some of you asked if that means no more Mets here on Channel 11. Well, not to worry, the name of the station may be changing, but the CW11 will still be the place to cheer on the Mets for years to come. Russ Springer up in the Astros bullpen as Adam Everett stands in and rips one to left for a base hit. Floyd chases it, almost overruns it, but cuts it off. Munson to third, and into second with a double goes Everett. And so John Maine, who had been just about spotless for 7 innings, gives up a walk and a double.
Well, after walking Munson on 4 pitches, decided to throw this first pitch fastball down the middle to try to get ahead of Adam Everett. Did not work as Everett hit that line drive to left field.
Cliff on that wet outfield nearly went too far chasing that ball. So For the first time in the game, the Astros get a runner to third base. Orlando Palmeiro will bat for the pitcher Nieve. Palmeiro, like everybody else seemingly on this Astros club, having a down year at the plate, hitting just .222. And he lifts one to right along the line. Munson tags at third. Nady makes the catch, and Munson's not going to try it, down by 7 runs. Wisely so. 1 out.
Well, good job by Nady. See how he gets behind that ball so that his momentum is coming forward. Once he did that, then Munson had no chance of coming. Only way that Munson could have thought of going is if Xavier Nady was sort of off balance and on his back foot. But once he got the momentum coming in, Munson was done.
That outfield defense has been just tremendous. Beltran, Floyd, Nady, Chavez. Here's Biggio, second and third, 1 out, and he drives one to center. Beltran coming in. He makes the catch. Here comes Munson. Here comes Beltran's throw to the plate. The slide. He's out. Thrown out at the plate with his team down by 7 runs. Even though Beltran's throw hit the mound and took a large hop, it still got there in time for Loduca to get the tag down. Blocked the plate perfectly. Side retired. With lots of rain tonight, John Maine got the surprise start instead of El Duque. And Jose Valentin got the Mets off to a flying start with his second grand slam of the year. Pretty as a picture play by Cliff Floyd helped the Mets defensively. And Paul Loduca bags out Eric Munson trying to score as Carlos Beltran guns down his 7th of the year. And that takes us to the 8th inning, and Russ Springer now on the mound for the Astros.
Well, the 37-year-old right-hander already appeared in 41 games so far this year for the Houston Astros. Having a fine year. You saw the batting average against Russ Springer.
David Wright leads off the home 8th inning and takes a strike from Springer.
Well, just another getting that momentum towards the plate. It hits the mound as Carlos Delgado lets it go by. And look at Loduca's play. He catches Munson's left foot with his left foot, not allowing Munson to touch the plate.
2 minutes for tripping.
Great play by Loduca. Just steps out with that left foot. Doesn't allow Munson to get there. And Willie, yeah, I love that too.
But tell me, what is Eric Munson doing trying to score there?
That's a bad play. You know, it's like any other play. You got to be safe. Great play by Beltran. 7 outfield assists. What is that? I think that's 26 outfield assists now for the New York Mets.
It leads the major leagues. Andy Chavez leads the club with 8. And Munson's not a fast guy, and he's got to know Beltran's got a great arm. And Wright strikes out for the 2nd time tonight. 1 away. Now Cliff Floyd coming to bat. Mets have been on a grand slam tear. It started with Floyd in Chicago. Later that same inning, Beltran. Beltran again the next game in Cincinnati. 449 feet. And then tonight, Jose Valentin joining in. Throw in the one Valentin hit 2 days before the All-Star break, and the Mets have hit 5 grand slams in the last 2 weeks. Cliff 0 for 3 tonight. Turn to that great play in left field, though. He takes ball 1 from Springer. And there's the grand slam kid on deck.
Wonder what he'd like better, grand slam or that you called him a kid. Grand slam kid, Jose Valentin.
When you get to be 36 in baseball age, you're usually called an old man. But not on this team when you got a guy a decade older.
That's right. Now you can aspire to play till you're 47.
In fact, Franco's going to turn 48 before too long. That's just off the charts. Although now with Buck O'Neil having taken a turn at bat, he's got something to aspire to. 1-2 the count to Floyd.
Have you ever spent any time around Buck O'Neil?
I've only seen him in the the baseball Ken Burns piece.
I spent some time just conversation with him, and you see John Maine trying to get hydrated for the last inning. Chance at his first big league shutout. He's just about as wonderful to talk to of the oral history of baseball in the United States.
Floyd looked like he hurt himself.
He fouled that ball right off his knee.
Having trouble bending that knee now, and Ray Ramirez, the trainer, coming out. Ooh, that's a bad spot.
You don't see many times. You see this cutter from Springer come inside. You don't see many times a guy fall a ball off his back knee
on the fly like that. That's a tough angle. Yeah, we talk about Floyd, and his teammates talk about Floyd and his dramatic presentations, but that's one where you could really suffer an injury.
I'm sure most Met fans have read the most recent Sports Illustrated and how the Mets locker room is not safe for anyone. And Cliff, of course, gets his fair share of abuse in that locker room.
You know who he is? He's the Earl Campbell of baseball. Remember every time Earl Campbell got tackled, it would take him 30 seconds to get up?
And then he'd get back and then run for another 30.
Exactly. That's Cliff. Speaking of 30.
Now, as a pitcher, if I saw a guy foul something off the back of his leg there, I want to go right back in there, you know, inflict a little more pain.
Well, Cliff's been drilled 11 times this year, because they like to pitch him inside. 2-2. Mets early in the season were dominant in opening games of series here at Shea, but they've lost their last 5 series openers at home. Trying to turn that around tonight, and well on their way.
I think really for the Mets, watching them play, once they get that starting rotation going again, where, you know, the starters are going 6 innings or more, that sets up that bullpen every single night, and that's when they can get on a real roll, a real streak.
Well, they've already gotten 8 innings out of John Maine tonight, and that will certainly help them this entire series. Regardless of whether he finishes the game today, he at least has given the bullpen a break, and that helps you tomorrow and the next day.
Even though Tom Glavine needed a lot of help from Chad Bradford yesterday, he got the ball into the 7th inning. There's Tommy. Watching that game yesterday, he could have had a lot less trouble in that ball game. The home plate umpire did not give him any pitches on the inside corner, and he was dealing in there all afternoon.
2-2. Floyd looks inside. 3-2. The Mets have had 3 complete games this year, but one of those was a Steve Traxel 4-inning affair in Philadelphia. A rain-shortened game. Del Duque pitched a complete game in Arizona.
So did Ole Soler in Arizona.
Long turn at bat for Floyd. He's already seen 9 pitches. On 3-2, Floyd fouls another one off. 10 pitches deep, but bat's still going. And for John Maine, at this point, is it help him or hurt him to be sitting there through a longer bottom of the 8th?
Well, you can see by the expression on his face that he looks a little bewildered right now, but I think it hurts. I think to get out there as soon as you can, but of course you always want your team to put more runs on the board, but he's chomping at the bit to get out there and have a chance.
Floyd gets ahead of one and cranks one that Sails into the mezzanine.
This day and age in baseball, there aren't many opportunities, whether it's John Maine or Pedro Martinez or Tom Glavine, to get a shutout. Guys just, do not go into the ninth as often.
Also, if you're up 1-0 or 2-0, you probably don't get a chance.
Yeah.
But at 7-0, you do. This is the 12th pitch of the at-bat to Floyd, and he fouls off another one. Well, he's getting his payback against Russ Springer. Springer threw a pitch that Cliff fouled off his knee, and now he's making sure that Springer has to exert a ton of energy just to get through this at-bat.
You're talking about the chance for Maine for shutout. All the stars have to be aligned. You have to get enough runs. You got to get great defensive play. You got to keep your pitch count down.
Pitch number 13 is ripped foul. Well, Cliff's getting his hacks.
4 hits through the first 8 innings for John Maine, but that's the best number right there for him. A big fat 0.
Just 1 walk and just 87 pitches through 8 innings. That's Maddox-like.
If I was John Maine, I would not want the offense to get too deep, because then I got to bat again. I've already have 3 Ks.
2 men get on base. This is the 14th pitch of the at bat, and it's fouled off again. This is turning into a classic.
You remember Pat Listash, Rookie of the Year, winner for Milwaukee Brewers, shortstop? He was the leadoff hitter for them in Milwaukee in a late game in September. That was for the A's in '92. 26 pitch first at bat.
No.
26.
26.
Then he hit a single.
Wow, how'd the rest of your night go?
It honestly went well that day, but.
And pitch number 15 lifted to right center field. And Berkman has the play. 2 out. Well, Floyd made him work. He dropped it, but he dropped it in the act of taking the ball out of his glove, in the opinion of Brian Runge. But that kind of epitomizes Houston's night.
Well, a little careless, but a catch nonetheless.
It's funny, in Houston last year, Mike Cameron had a play just like that go against him, where it looked like he was transferring the ball, but they called him for dropping it. 2 out and nobody on. Here's Jose Valentin, who has the biggest hit in this game, a 2nd inning grand slam. And he takes a breaking ball for a strike from Springer. Of course, that series for Cameron in Houston, if I recall correctly, he was on tenterhooks because it was right at the trading deadline, and he thought he was going to get traded for Manny Ramirez. Mets have not been to Houston yet this year. When they were there last year, Carlos Beltran was booed every minute of that series. Every time he came to bat, every time he touched the ball, because he had not re-signed with the Astros the previous winter. See how he gets treated this year. 2-1.
And booed because they fell in love with him during the playoffs.
Why not? Tell you what, the reaction I'm looking forward to this year, Mike Piazza comes to Shea. 2nd week in August. That is going to be something to behold. Should be nothing but love flowing from these fans, as there was late last year. On 2-1, Valentin pops it up. Huff in from 3rd. And the side retired in order. A strenuous inning. Nonetheless, a 1-2-3 inning, and Maine goes to the mound, bidding for that rare complete game shutout.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Sterling Mats and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Sterling Mats.
9th inning, John Maine bidding for his first win as a New York Met and trying to make it a complete game shutout. Working on a 4-hitter as he starts the 9th. Mike Lamb, first man up against him, 1 for 3 on the night. And Lamb hits the first pitch to second base. Valentin on the backhand, 1 away. On the 88th pitch of the night by Maine, 1 out and nobody on in the 9th. Andy Chavez has come in the game to play left field for defense. And that's a nice touch by Willie Randolph, trying to help Maine get that shutout.
I think help Maine get that shutout also. Cliff fouled that ball off his knee, get some ice on it as quick as you can. Get him ready for tomorrow.
Now here's the guy that Floyd robbed of a home run, Chris Burke, and he takes a strike. If not for Floyd's catch going over the wall, Maine would not be working on a shutout. And he bounces the breaking ball 1-1.
Well, that certainly wasn't a good one, but we've seen 3 or 4 excellent curveballs from John Maine tonight, something we haven't seen in his first few outings for the Mets.
25-year-old right-hander from Virginia throws the breaking ball and misses. 2-1. Maine got his first 2 big league wins last year as an Oriole. Was 0-3 when he began this night, and now sensing the finish line. That's keeping the bullpen busy just in case. But Maine not looking like he's needing a whole lot of help. This will be his 94th pitch. Popped up, foul. That'll come back out of play. 3-2 to Burke.
You know, he throws a lot of fastballs up in the strike zone that the hitters just don't seem to square. And to me, that means that there's got to be a big difference. 2 things that have to happen. The ball's coming out of his hands, and sometimes it's different speeds. And secondly, it comes out of his hands, and it jumps a little at the hitter at the very last second.
Maine has walked 1. He's struck out 4. 3-2 to Burke. Bounced foul. David Wright gives it to an Astros fan with a Clemens jersey. And he gives it away. Nicely done by him.
Oh, he already has one.
I see. It's an embarrassment of riches. And Wright gets the payoff. 2 out. Well, Willie Randolph has got to be absolutely thrilled. He made the decision to scratch El Duque tonight, push him back to tomorrow because of the inclement weather, hand the ball to Maine. Could it have worked out any better?
Oh, no way. But give credit to John Maine. He was ready when he was told to pitch, came out here and was aggressive, went right after the Astros hitters from pitch 1. And here he is with a chance of the shutout with 2 outs and a 9.
And all that stands in his way is the best hitter in the Astros lineup. And Berkman takes ball 1.
Still throwing 92 miles an hour in the 9th innings, John Maine.
This will be his 98th pitch of the night. To center field. Beltran's right there waiting. And the ball game is over. John Maine gets his first win as a New York Met, and it's a complete game 4-hit shutout. The Mets' second complete game shutout of the season. Ole Soler threw a 2-hitter against Arizona. But John Maine becomes the second Met rookie this year to throw a complete game shutout, and those are the only 2 that the Mets have garnered. What a performance on short notice by John Maine as Beltran flips him the game ball.
Well, that's a ball he'll keep forever as he's getting the congratulations. Great effort by John Maine tonight.
25-year-old John Maine in his 4th start as a New York Met. He showed signs in the first 3 that he could be a winning pitcher, and he was every bit the winning pitcher tonight. Complete game shutout for Maine, and the Mets take the opener of the series from the Astros. Back with more from Shea in a moment. New York Mets baseball is brought to you by Chevrolet, announcing Chevy Sign and Drive. Visit your local Chevy dealer and leave your checkbook at home. By Verizon Online DSL, now at a great low price. By Lexus and their passionate pursuit of perfection. By new Heineken Premium Light, make a smooth introduction. And by Dodge, you can take life as it comes, or you can grab life by the horns. Take a look at our Jeep game summary. Jose Valentin with his 2nd grand slam. Carlos Delgado his 2nd home runs in 2 games. But star of the night, 25-year-old right-hander from Fredericksburg, Virginia, John Maine, a complete game 4-hit shutout, his first win as a Met, and it was an absolute gem. Back with more from Shea in a moment. Well, here at Shea Stadium, the Mets take the opener of the weekend series from the Astros. 7-0 as They get the home run balls, they get the great defense, and most importantly, they get wonderful pitching from John Maine.
Just unbelievable. Again, the grand slams are the things that are really helping the Mets so far. And in the second inning, Jose Valentin, after an error by first baseman Mike Lamb of the Houston Astros, he hits this grand slam. That's his second in less than 2 weeks. And then the defense here. Remember, John Maine gave up 3 solo home runs in his last start. Cliff Floyd doesn't allow that to happen off the bat of Chris Burke. He likes that play, so does the Mets bench.
And then for the second straight day, Carlos Delgado shows signs he's out of his prolonged slump.
Well, Carlos Delgado taking these little baby steps, a lot of hard work. He is coming back.
And the story of the night, John Maine.
Showed a good curveball, something we haven't seen. We have seen all that life he has in his fastball up in the strike zone. And again, another fine play and another assist. 26 for the Mets from Carlos Beltran with a great assist from Paul LaDuca.
That kept the shutout intact. Then all that was necessary was the final out. And Beltran caught the fly ball from Berkman. And John Maine, who didn't find out he was going to start this game until, 2 hours before the game began. Del Duque scratched because of the inclement weather. We had a rain delay of almost an hour before the game. And what does he do? He goes out and throws a 4-hit shutout for his first National League win. Mets win it 7-0. We'll come back with more from Shea Stadium in just a moment. Well, Merengue night at Shea Stadium, as usual, turns out to be a successful one. Mets are now 8-2 on Merengue night. Final score tonight, the Mets 7 and the Astros 0. Be sure to join us on the WB11 for our next Mets telecast, Friday at 7:30, when the Mets visit the Atlanta Braves. John Maine found out shortly before the game tonight that he was going to start tonight and not tomorrow. And he was in command right from the start. Got runs in the second inning when Jose Valentin contributed his second grand slam of the year, and the Mets' 5th in the last 2 weeks. Cliff Floyd provided defense, taking a home run away from Chris Burke. Carlos Delgado homered for the second straight day, and Maine had plenty of runs to work with. Carlos Beltran throwing out a runner at the plate to keep the shutout intact, and the Mets and John Maine win it 7-0. Now for Ron Darling and Chris Connor, I'm Gary Cohen. Stay tuned for the WB11 News.